Down there tomorrow. Down there tomorrow.
Good evening and welcome to the June 28th, 2021 meeting of the Newtown Township Board of Supervisors. Thank you for your patience. Remind everybody that this meeting is being recorded and is being broadcast live on YouTube. The board was in executive session prior to this meeting to discuss 2 personnel matters and 1 legal matter. I'd now like to call the meeting to order. Mr. Neese, will you please call the roll?
Yes. Mr. Nawn.
Present.
Mr. Partridge.
Here.
Ms. Roberts Lightcap.
Here.
Mr. Russo.
Here.
Mr. Altieri.
Here.
Your solicitor, engineer, and manager are here.
Thank you, Mr. Neese. For a moment of silence this evening, let's please keep in our thoughts and our prayers the Brown family as they go through their most recent loss. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, I'll entertain a motion to approve the seating agenda or consideration of any additions.
So moved.
No, wait.
Oh, you have an addition? Sorry.
There is an addition, Mr. Chairman, under additional business. It'll be 14.1. Consider approving resolution 2021-24, resolution creating the Newtown Township Trails and Greenway Committee.
Is that your motion, Mr. Altieri?
I believe it should be under 13.3 under resolutions.
We'll move to 13.3 then.
Is that your resolution, Mr. Altieri?
That is, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Motion is made by Supervisor Altieri, seconded by Supervisor Partridge to add item 13.3, the ordinance or resolution 2021-24, Trails and Greenway Committee. Any further additions or comments on the agenda? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item 6, we will take those as we get through the agenda. Since that is public comment for agenda items only, we will take them during the agenda item. Item 7, minutes. Consider approving the minutes from our June 14th, 2021 meeting. I'll entertain a motion for approval or consideration of any changes.
Make a motion to approve the minutes of our June 14, 2021 meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is made by Supervisor Altieri, seconded by Supervisor Russo to approve the minutes from our June 14th, 2021 meeting as written. Any further questions or discussions from members of the board? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next, our reports. First off, we have a report from our police department. Chief Lunn, do you have anything to add to your report?
Nothing to add.
Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Lunn? Please.
Young man that was here, the officer last 2 weeks ago, made a presentation, moving forward with his idea to get the dog. Are we getting a vehicle sourced out for him so that when he gets to this point, he's ready?
We're looking into that now.
There's our long lead right now.
There are some where we purchased the other 2 vehicles. They do have some in stock. We're looking at how they are equipped.
Well, even if we had to help him now, somehow temporarily get it to be raised as funds.
That's a good point.
I hate to have to go down the road, get everything ready, and then not have a vehicle.
Depending on which new vehicle you're looking for right now, it might be non-existent. So it's a good
Yeah.
point you bring up.
That's all.
As long as you're on top of it, Chief, we're good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
sir.
Next, we have a Chief Everlof is here from the Fire Department. Chief, anything to add to your report? Thank you, Chief Everlof. I will remind everyone that if you have not contributed this year to the fire company, fill out your pledges, please do so. Every dollar that goes to help our fire company helps keep our contribution to them from the township lower. It is a volunteer fire company. So,
I actually have a follow-up on that. Do you have the updated numbers from the fund drive?
I do not.
Okay. Then, please.
Next is Chief Laws. Chief Laws is not here. We do have his report. Next is George Sherrick. George, have anything to add to your report? Does
Nothing to add.
anybody have any questions for Mr. Sherrick?
How's the sweeper working?
Thank you for bringing that, because I almost forgot what I said.
Thank you. Yeah, so the sweeper's going very well. When it came back, we sent it immediately down the bike lanes, down Campus and Stony Brook and Troop Farm, got them first. We then jumped on the Westchester Pike, and we've been getting the pike ready for the 4th of July parade. And we've been putting it into the neighborhoods as well, but again, concentrating on the pike right now. Yeah, and it's working great, thanks.
I shed a tear when I saw it, George.
Thank you, George.
So happy to see it back. Any other questions for Mr. Sherrick? All right, next we have our report from Andy Reschek. Andy, anything to add?
Nothing to add.
Any questions for Andy? Fantastic. We have a report from Mr. Lafayette. Rich, anything to add? Anybody have any questions for Rich? All righty. Arlene, you're next. Anything to add to your report? Any questions for Arlene? Outstanding. Bruce is not here. We do have a report from Bruce Killen from the EAC. I trust we all read that. Wade Pollock is here. Wade, anything to add to your report?
Nothing to add.
Any questions for Wade? Super. Rich Enal is here. Rich, anything to add to your report?
Nothing to add.
Any questions for Rich? Outstanding. Next is a report from our township engineer, Eileen Nelson. Eileen, anything to add to your report? Any questions for Eileen? Wow. Okay, if there's no questions for the manager, we'll move on. You're gonna break the screen here, aren't you?
If I can, I have two really quick things. Actually, one I really thought you were going to ask George was we do have all 4 of the speed tables put in, 2 in Echo Valley and two over on Sawmill. They are in place. So the good news is they're in. The bad news, we haven't gotten them in any faster than what we did the first one. So they are taking about a day, a little bit shorter.
Okay.
A lot of work.
But it is a lot of work to get them in. But they're in, and we're very excited about that. And we're going to be able to, in about 45 days, do a test on what our speeds are. Has it made a difference? And we'll be able to let you have some reports back.
So Chief Lunn and our engineer are gonna be looking at the.
We're going to be looking at
data
that
and seeing.
and see. So I just wanted to let you know, I did receive actually, George received a letter from Landmark Dividends. They were interested in knowing if we wanted to put a billboard up. I was going to say no, but I thought I better ask the township, their board of supervisors, but I assumed the answer was that we were not interested. And if that's the case,
Good assumption, Mr. Neese.
I would just move forward and we'll let them know that we're not interested.
Okay.
Other than that, everything else is in the agenda.
Do we have any questions for Mr. Neese? All right, outstanding. Item number 9, budget adjustment. We have 2 of them. We'll take them one at a time since I think they're 2 different things. One is first adjustment is this is a budget increase 2021-04, which is going to increase the general fund budget. What we're doing is we're increasing the revenue account for insurance refunds by $29,767.71. And we're increasing the expense account for sweeper repairs by the same amount, $29,767.71. And this is the increase that came as a result of the insurance reimbursement due to our street sweepers' unfortunate involvement in the accident back in 2020. The repair remortgages were not received until 2021, so that's why that's part of this budget.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion was made by Supervisor Partridge, seconded by Supervisor Russo to approve item 9.1. Any further questions from the board on this item? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Before I get into number 9.2, is that kind of premature before we discuss 11.1? I mean, we're adjusting the budget for 11-1, but we haven't approved 11-1 yet, so I'm just,
Yeah, if you want to do 11-1 and then we'll come back and do that at the same time. we
want
can
to do
that.
11-1 now, or do you want
Yeah,
to?
I think you want to do 11 now.
Let's do 11. We're going to move ahead to 11-1 then, and then that way we can do 9.2. Item 11-1 under new business is consider approving the quotes from Signal Service in the combined amount of $13,675 to install video detection and radar detection at Westchester Pike and SAP Drive to replace the failed eastbound left turn lane loop and the westbound vehicle density loops. The loops are failed due to payment deterioration Westchester Pike, and the emergency repairs are already paid for from fund balance. Before I turn it over to Mr. Neese, let me just explain my understanding of this. A lot of our newer signals already have it, video detection and things like that on them. That is the new way to go. Loops in the street aren't really the way to go anymore. And it really is our responsibility, unfortunately, for the traffic signal, not the developers and not PennDOT's. So that's what I know. I don't know, Mr. Neese, you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I do. Actually, this was meant to be addressed in the phase 5, 4 and 5 of the widening of Westchester Pike, but the area there has deteriorated quicker and is causing problems. So I have reached out to the developer, and what they are willing to do is we need to pay for these upfront and do it now because of safety. But they are willing to reimburse us this cost at some point in the future as they move forward with the phase 4 or 5, whichever one this fits. I forget. One's at the Rhodes Avenue and one's at the SAP end.
Right.
But they're willing to help reimburse us on this cost at that time when they go out for the funding to do this. And they'll make sure that they, maintain that we don't throw those away. They will add to the engineering to make sure that we have those.
Awesome.
So moved.
Motion is made by Supervisor Partridge to approve item 11.1. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion was seconded by Supervisor Roberts Lightcap. Mr. Russo, did you have additional questions on this?
No.
Any further questions or discussions from members of the board on this item? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor of approving item 11.1, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, let's move back up to 9.2. 9.2 is consider approving a budget increase 2021-05, which is going to increase the general fund budget as follows. We're going to increase the revenue account by $13,675, and we're going to increase the expense account for signal repairs by $13,675.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made by Supervisor Altieri, seconded by Supervisor Roberts Lightcap to approve budget increase 9.2. Any further questions and discussions on the motion?
I do have one question. So the developer said that they would do that on the next phase 4 or 5, whatever is wherever this lies. Is there going to be a note in the permit set or something
Yes,
that?
we have the plans in for review now.
Mhm.
They were called for. What we're going to have them do before it goes out to bid is note that they've already been provided and will need to be restored when that.
And if we can be provided by the township, and then the note that we get, that was our contribution, or we get paid back for
Yes.
that. We don't want to miss that.
Yeah, we
It
don't
will
want to.
not be missed.
Okay.
We're getting a letter to that effect that they're doing the.
Okay, great. Yeah,
As well.
okay.
Okay.
Yep, thank you.
Any other questions? Motion was made and seconded. All those in favor of approving item 9.2, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, moving on. Item 10.1 and 10.2. I'm going to offer them as one motion. I'm going to make a motion that we approve the bills on check register A dated June 28th, 2021, in the amount of $122,333.50. And that's going to also include approving the bills on check register B dated same date, June 28th, 2021, the amount of $200,258.50. I had the opportunity before this evening's meeting to review those bills, and that is my motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion was seconded by Supervisor Partridge. Any questions from members of the board on this item? Any questions from members of the public on the bills? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, under new business, item 11.2, consider approving the permit fee waiver request from the Petticoat League. I don't think there's anybody here from the Petticoat League to represent this, Mr. Neese.
I do not see one here.
Can you give us some enlightenment then?
I can, but if you mind, I'm going to actually defer to our codes director since he's here this evening to actually fill us in probably a little bit better than I can. And I do know it has to do with 2 sheds, but if
That's fine.
Andy can give the full.
Yeah, simply we were made aware that the Petticoat League installed a couple different shed, accessory shed structures on the property, mainly used to house their, equipment, their field care equipment. And as a result, they filed the permits after the fact, but also wanted to ask relief from those fees. So they presented a letter. I don't know if the letter was included in the packet, but there is a waiver request letter that they've submitted to you for your consideration.
Generally, we prefer that they request a waiver before they actually go ahead and do the work.
Well, I mean, in their defense, they were replacing existing sheds, and I don't believe that they were completely aware that they needed it. They needed a permit, so.
I'll move that.
You wanna move to-
I want to move to approve the waiver.
I'll second it.
Okay. Motion is made by Supervisor Partridge, seconded by Supervisor Russo to approve the waiver. Any further questions, discussions from members of the board on this item? Any questions from members of the public on this item? Hearing and seeing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Andy. All right, item 11.3, consider approving the advertisement of the amendment to ordinance 2021-02, amending the Township Code, Chapter 165-1, stop sign installation. Mr. Neese.
So if you'll recall, I believe it was last meeting, I shared with you that we had a stop sign that was, we had a cul-de-sac that didn't have a stop sign on it. Somebody came out of the cul-de-sac, didn't stop, was in an accident. You had agreed that we would do that. This is putting it on the agenda to get the advertisement done so that we can move forward and get the change.
Our chief and our engineer have looked at this.
I know the chief has in that place, but
It's Hidden Springs.
it's Hidden Springs, it's.
And Malin Road. I was actually surprised there wasn't a sign there
Yeah.
already.
You go.
Chief's okay with this, right?
Is there a sign up there? Is there a sign, did the sign already get installed? And this is just the,
I don't
The
think the
paperwork
sign has
aspect
been
of it?
installed at this point. We haven't directed for the sign to be installed. You had directed us to get the adjustment done to the
Right.
ordinance.
Yeah.
And so that's why we're here.
and the only reason why I asked that question is because I know that we've done it
Retro.
retroactively before. So that's why I was just curious.
Yeah.
Right.
We can install it. I believe we have.
We did put it on the list to get installed. I just haven't driven over to see whether the guys have gotten it done yet. But I know
haven't seen it
we'd
yet.
put it on
Yeah,
the
I've seen
schedule.
it.
I mean, I have it as east on Hidden Springs Circle at Malin Road.
Right.
Hidden Springs is a cul-de-sac.
Yeah, there's only a few houses there, but sometimes what happens is people come off of Brymore Avenue and they've gotten, I see a lot of people they go in there, make a U-turn and come out, and you come down that hill pretty quick, right? They just fly.
People slide.
Some people, not me, come down there really fast. So,
Mr.
So
Chairman,
moved.
can I have the chief confirm that it's east on Hidden Springs Circle?
Hang on, the motion was made by Supervisor Roberts Lightcap, seconded by Supervisor Partridge to approve item 11.3. Go ahead, Mr.
Is it east?
Yes.
Thank you for that clarification, Chief.
He's as sharp as a bowling ball, isn't he?
Any further questions or discussions on the motion? Any comments from members of the general public regarding this item? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor of approving 11.3, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item 11.4, discussion of ordinance 2020-104, Newtown Township Fire Company Emergency Service Cost Reimbursement. Mr. Neese.
So if you'll remember, Chief Everlof approached us about potentially having an opportunity for the fire company to be reimbursed from insurance companies when they were at fires for equipment that was either damaged at the fire or a portion of what was used at fires. And what this ordinance does in a nutshell is allows the fire company to bill the insurance company back, either themselves or using a third party, up to the amount that the insurance was coverage. It would be no cost to township residents directly out of their pocket for the fire. It would be through their insurance company.
which, as far as my experience is quite common. I was surprised that we didn't do the same here.
Oh, it is very common in a lot of municipalities.
We just discussed this issue.
Yeah, we discussed it I think we discussed it last meeting.
Last meeting.
You asked for it, we put it together, it was in your packet for you to review, and we'd like to go ahead and get it advertised.
So moved.
Advertise? Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is made by Supervisor Partridge, seconded by Supervisor Roberts Lycap to advertise ordinance 2020-104, the Newtown Township Fire Company Emergency Service Cost Reimbursement Ordinance. Any further questions or discussions from members of the board on this item? Any questions or discussion from members of the general public on this item? If so, please step to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and be heard.
Grayson Allfather, 208 Carriage Lane. My insurance company told me that they only reimburse up to $1,000. I don't know if that was a consideration in this, that they won't reimburse over that if you have a claim.
Thank you. Any other comments? All right, seeing none. All those in favor of item 11.4 to advertise the ordinance, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Just so everybody understands, the only thing we voted tonight was to advertise the ordinance. Once we've advertised the ordinance, then we'll have discussion about the ordinance after the legal advertisement time. So, okay, item 12.1 under old business, discussion about the RFP list.
So if you recall, I believe it was probably a month and a half ago, 2 months ago, I sent you out an RFP list of things that we had either coming due or potentially could come due
Right.
In 2021. And one of the things that we had said is that you would give direction to us as staff as to what you would like to for sure see us go out and do an RFP for. We would like to go ahead and get the RFPs written this summer. So that we're ready to release them come fall in time, so we would get numbers back for the budget for 2022. If I believe that you were sent out the list again, probably via email this week, because for some reason we were having a hard time getting it to convert the file. So I didn't know if you had any input that you wanted to give us back to staff, that we would know where to head and that we could get these RFPs done that you would like us to do.
Me? So I identified ones that I highlighted. Again, being only one of 5 that I have concerns with, or ones that I would like to see go out. So as I said before, I think it's important for us to look at, and I think the rest of the board agrees, to go out to RFP on a majority of these. In my opinion, except for the solicitor, the alternate solicitor, the engineer, and the alternate engineer, just because the institutional, while we might save a few dollars in their hourly rate, the institutional knowledge that we could lose, I think would be far greater than any savings. But the ones that I specifically would like to go out and do RFPs for is the building permit review and inspection, which is BIU, the electrical permit review and inspection, United Inspections, Inc. I believe, I originally I stated I would like to go out for the fire marshal and assistant fire marshal, but I believe from guidance from the solicitor and township manager that they are actually employees of the township, so we can't actually go out and do RFP for them. Is that correct?
I think it's a little more, I think the challenge is being that they're employees, how are you, are you intending to terminate their contract with us or their employment with us? I mean, obviously, Joe Alonso is a police officer. I mean, we could have a different assistant fire marshal and he probably wouldn't care. I don't know that I think Chris and I talked last week, he's probably responded to 1 or 2 fires in the last 6 years. But the Carl is he's actually an employee of the township for doing inspections related to fire and is paid through that for doing fire marshal.
As an employee, then we could simply terminate and hire somebody else. We don't have to go out for an RFP for that position.
Correct.
But with that information given, I think that I will say it's not worth going down that line or down that road. Sewage enforcement officer is another one that I had highlighted. And then the other two were ones that looked like we did a contract for them in 2017 and 2018 respectively. I don't know whether we did any sort of RFP for them outside of that, but I don't know how this works necessarily, but the animal shelter and then the HVAC maintenance. Again, those are ones that are contractual that we have not renewed or, that were entered into more than 3 years ago. So that's just me. All the other ones in terms of contracts that we have were entered into 2021, 2019, and 2020 respectfully. In terms of the Office of Finance, I don't, however you guys normally do your process, I don't think that that's.
I'm sorry, which one?
I'm saying for all the ones listed under Office/Finance, however you guys normally do your process, I don't have an opinion on that. I
Okay.
was more or less looking at the big ones that we go out to do RFPs for.
Just let me say on the SEO,
Okay,
the SEO, I believe, is the same person as the municipal authority engineer, and there's some synergies, I guess, that are gained by having that person do that work, if I'm not mistaken. So I don't know if we want to upset that and have the SEO or sewage enforcement officer potentially different from our municipal authority engineer. Not that we appoint the municipal authority engineer, but I think there's some advantages to having that person be both.
Is he in McCumbie's office?
Yes.
Yeah.
He is?
Or you just.
No, I would say, so again, well, I mean, does anyone else have anything else I want to say? Ed's ready to go, but is there anyone else who has anything else? Oh, yeah, so I said the building permit review and inspection, electrical permit review and inspection, the HVAC maintenance, and I don't know how the animal shelter works.
Is the HVAC maintenance, Mr. Anise, is that just something we just haven't done in the past, or?
No, we
Well, I
have
can
done
tell
it.
we haven't
I
done it in
think
the
it was
past.
back in 2016. Maybe even have been a little bit before that.
But there's no reason we have to keep that person. right
No,
now.
the only one that we have kind of kept on, you have kind of two things that are kind of going on right now.
Right.
We're sticky in here right tonight. And so
Noticed.
we've been still using the folks that installed the current system to come back out for some things. And then, but the day-to-day maintenance of changing filters and doing all of that, we've been using Goshen Mechanical as per what we had gone out with them. And they were the ones that were here prior to this new system being put in.
Correct, and we bring that annually to you as a, do we want to renew for another year? But that's something that we could certainly put out and investigate, yeah.
As far as the animal shelter goes, I seem to remember that we had a hard time finding anybody that would even want to do that. I guess I don't think it's a big expense item, but do we even think there's an alternative for an animal shelter?
Actually, I think Chris has been looking at something.
So currently we use the Brandywine Animal Hospital.
Right.
And a couple of months ago now, we had a house that we had to have some animals removed from, and we had to contact the Brandywine Valley SPCA to have them come out and go into the house. They were animal enforcement officers, so they needed a search warrant to go into the house to remove the animals from the home. So after they did that, they sent a proposal for their services.
Okay, so there is an alternative then if we put this out to RFP?
Yes.
Oh, that's fine then. I have no problem. We had to kick and scream somebody to actually take the animals. All right, appreciate that clarity then.
I just have two questions. The auditor
Yes.
that we've now, I know that
We
the
change it
finance
every 3
committee
years, right?
has, I guess, best practices, right, Rich? To change the auditor. So they're in their final year. Is that what?
So the question is whether you do, I think they've done 3. They've done 3. We could do as long as 5
Okay.
and still be within best practices. But if you want us to go sooner than that.
Whatever you, however you.
What's your recommendation?
Yeah, whatever you feel is
So
appropriate.
if what we're going to do is switch back to the prior auditor and do it that way, then I would probably recommend that we would go ahead and go 2 more years and do the full 5 with Mally. I should not be recommending that to you, what I will do, because obviously they're coming in and auditing what Rich and I do.
Yeah, right.
And so what I would recommend is that why don't we, if you're okay, we'll present this to the finance committee.
That's a
And
great
we'll have
idea.
finance committee make a recommendation back to you as a board.
I think that's an excellent idea.
Pension.
Yes.
How does that, what is, they manage the pension? Is that
Yeah,
what
so
happens?
we actually have two different groups. We have one group that does our evaluation. So you have one group that manages the money that we've deposited.
Mhm.
And when that money is deposited, they make sure that it's invested, and we've been using, I think they're now called CBIZ. CBIZ, it used to be INR, if you remember those names. I believe they've been handling your pension long before I came, but I think it was back in 2002 kind of timeframe. I'm looking at Chris because it was the police pension that was first. It's been a long time. They've been kind of managing that. I will tell you, we've been approached by PFM. Would we be willing to consider somebody different? I didn't know where the board would be on
We
that.
have a
So
pension committee? I
we
thought
do have a pension committee.
Yes.
And so, you know,
Maybe we
again,
do the same
we
I
thing.
think that's maybe the same thing, and ask them to give us a recommendation in the next couple, I don't know, next meeting or two, so we can then get that RFP written if need be.
And then insurance, they're just the insurance broker that puts out to different agencies. Is that what they do? Or to different carriers, I mean?
Are the carriers different, or are the carriers always the same? I don't know that answer.
No, they manage your broker.
I know that Gallagher Insurance is the one that's been handling that.
But it's always the same.
I think it's typical, I mean, there are different carriers depending on the insurance that we are
But
getting.
it's always the same
But
carriers.
it's tended to be the same carriers, at least since we've been here.
I always find when we always put we've got a big portfolio when we put out my company, the company I work for, we put it out, we just saved $200,000 by changing carriers.
Well, if we could save $200,000, that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
I don't
Well,
think
of
we'd
course,
be
ours is
paying
a lot
anything,
bigger
but that
than
would be.
Yeah, okay,
But if you want us to do that, we will do that.
something to look at.
We don't really need a motion or anything at this point, just.
No, I just need direction.
We have a consensus on 4 to start with, right?
I just have one follow-up question. I guess this is going to be for you, George. Mascara, we go out this year, right? 6 months out. That's we're doing an RFP for that.
We do, so we would do that no matter what.
Got it.
Right.
Yeah, perfect.
I think we need some direction from the board as to how you want that to look, because I know there's been some talk. I mean,
I think you offer both weekly and biweekly.
okay, my recommendation would be, if it's okay, I think we would list it as 2 separate RFPs. I think it would be easier as we start looking, because what we know is sometimes when you combine both, it gets kind of messy when you're trying to figure out who's the lowest bidder. So I think we might want to do 2 separate. George, you may have a different opinion, but I know we've talked about this, and we're thinking that there might be some challenges.
With all due respect, I'm in favor of bi-weekly. You want weekly and bi-weekly. Have board consensus on weekly.
I think it's okay to let them work on the RFPs.
Yeah.
And then we go out and get prices, and we can sit there and go, when is Mascara's contract up?
It's up in January 1st. The contract changes January 1st,
There, thanks.
right?
Correct, yeah, so it's annual, so it's January 1st. And again, the last 2 times that we've done the contract, we have put it out as twice a month, and with the option of looking at it weekly. So
This time you're suggesting we're going to do 2 separate RFPs.
I'm
And I think it's-
suggesting that.
I think we do that, and then we see the prices, then we can have that discussion about whether we want to go one way or the other way.
But I think it's right to do it 2 separate RFPs, because you might get a different carrier who may look at it if
Yeah,
it's once a
they
week.
play games.
It got confusing sometimes when certain carriers didn't want to do certain things, and so
Right.
Yes, it
it would be
skewed it.
cleaner to have 2 separate. And then you
Gives us the ability to throw out all bids from one or all bids from the other and just,
So for the pension and the auditor, we're going to have the two committees.
Make a
look at those. Yeah,
recommendation.
make a recommendation.
And
Okay.
I think, Steve, if you and Rich can get together and do a little more investigation on the insurance, maybe come back to us with a recommendation whether we should be looking at that or not. Unless, I don't think we have an insurance committee, so.
We don't have an insurance committee, but what I will do is, I believe the way insurance is often found under finance, so I will work with the finance committee if
Okay.
that's
Oh,
acceptable
yes.
to you.
No, that's fine.
And we will present this to them and see if they have a recommendation.
So for right now, census on these four, see if you guys agree on
These
those four.
So
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Mhm. And then the committees, then the other ones are the committees.
Yeah, I think we have consensus, Steve, on animal shelter, HVAC maintenance, building permit review, and electrical permit review is where we'd like to see some RFPs go out this year.
And
Okay.
auditor and insurance goes to finance, and then pension goes to pension board.
And they'll give us recommendations on what they think ought to happen.
Mhm.
Good? Are we good with it?
And recycling was going to go out
Oh,
anyway,
that's,
Recycling's
yeah,
what I
that's,
have,
that's, yeah.
and so does salt bid. Just so-
George does a great
Yeah,
job with
George-
salt, man.
George isn't getting rid of that.
He's Mr. Salt.
So cheap, he pays for it.
Good?
I think I'm good. I think we've got enough direction to know where to go. After both committees meet again, we will get back to you as from recommendations.
Super. All right. Moving on. Item 13, resolutions of legislation in action. Item 13.1, consider approving resolution 2021-22, DCED resolution to accept the Greer Park Master Plan. Mr. Altieri.
I would like a motion for resolution number 2021-22, a resolution closing out Department of Community and Economic Development Grant Project C00006985. Whereas the Township of Newtown has prepared a master plan for Greer Park, and whereas the purpose of the plan is to provide a framework for future decisions that affect the park revitalization, and whereas the plan was financed in part by a grant under the administration of the Pennsylvania Department of Community and Economic Development, Bureau of Recreation and Conservation, under contract number C00006985. Now therefore be resolved by the Board of Supervisors of the Township of Newtown that the project was completed in accordance with the grant agreement. All project expenditures have been made and were in accordance with the grant agreement. The plan and related materials are acceptable to Newtown Township. The plan and related materials will be used to guide future recreation and conservation decisions adopted this 28th day of June 2021 by the Newtown Township Board of Supervisors.
There's a second. Mr. Parkin seconded. Any further questions or discussions from members of the board?
I just want to, this kind of goes for both of them, but Wade Pollock's in the back there. For anyone who's been living under a rock and doesn't know who he is, it's hard to miss his name. But I just wanted to say publicly, Wade, I know that this board has thanked you and your committee for all the work that you've done with regards to Greer Park, but this being, these next two resolutions being the final hurdle for adoption, I just wanted to thank you and your committee for everything that you guys have done on it.
Yeah, well done, Wade. Any questions from members of the general public? Hearing and seeing none. All those in favor of item 13.1, approving resolution 2021-22, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next on the agenda, we have consider approving resolution 2021-23, the DCNR resolution to accept the Greer Park Master Plan. Mr. Altieri.
Resolution number 2021-23, a resolution closing out Community Conservation Partnerships Grant Project, BRC-TAG 24265. Whereas the Township of Newtown has prepared a master plan for Greer Park, and whereas the purpose of the plan is to provide a framework for future decisions that affect the park, and whereas the plan was financed in part by a Community Conservation Partnerships Program grant under the administration of the Pennsylvania Department of Conservation and Natural Resources, Bureau of Recreation and Conservation, under contract number BRC-TAG 24265. Now therefore be resolved by the supervisors of the Township of Newtown that the project was completed in accordance with the grant agreement. All project expenditures have been made and were in accordance with the grant agreement. The plan and related materials are acceptable to Newtown Township. The plan and related materials will be used to guide future recreation and conservation decisions adopted this 28th day of June 2021 by the Newtown Township Board of Supervisors.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is made by Supervisor Altieri, seconded by Supervisor Russo, to approve item 13.2, the resolution 2021-23. Any further questions or discussions from members of the board? Any questions from members of the general public? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next, we have the addition, item 13.3, the consider approving resolution 2021-24, which is our Trails and Greenway Committee resolution. Mr. Russo.
Establishing the Newtown Township Trails and Greenways Committee. Whereas the Board of Supervisors is committed to improving the quality of life of its residents by preserving open space, creating corridors of protected and recreational greenways, and desires to establish new walking trails, paths, and bike routes across the township. Whereas to achieve the goals, the Board of Supervisors hereby creates the Newtown Township Trails and Greenways Committee, and whereas the committee shall be tasked with, among other objectives, implementing the Newtown Township Greenway and Open Space Network Plan, enhancing existing greenways and open space, provide connections between downtown neighborhoods and surrounding municipalities, parks, and open space, clarify greenway and open space needs, and to identify new greenway and open space opportunities. Whereas the committee shall consist of 3 or 5 members to be appointed by the Board of Supervisors from time to time or at the annual reorganization meeting. Whereas the members shall serve terms of 5 years unless otherwise determined by the Board of Supervisors. Whereas the committee shall hold monthly meetings open to the public in which records are kept and made public. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Supervisors establishes the Newtown Trails and Greenways Committee.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is made by Supervisor Russo, seconded by Supervisor Altieri, to approve resolution 2021-24. Any further questions or discussions from members of the board on this item?
If you know anyone who's interested in applying, have them apply. Originally, the deadline was tomorrow, but we're going to extend that. I don't know if we need to take a vote on that after this, but we're going to extend that deadline to Friday. So, if you have any neighbors who have an interest in expanding the trail system here in the township or implementing the Greenways and Trails program, please have them apply to the township by sending an email to Suzanne. All you need is a letter of intent. We don't ask for a formal resume.
Any other comments from members of the board? Any comments from members of the public on this item? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Fantastic. We have no additional business listed. Next on the agenda would be board comments. Any board member wish to make an additional comment? Outstanding. Next on the agenda is public comment. This is public comment for items that are not listed on the agenda. If you wish to make a comment, please identify yourself, step forward to the podium, and be heard.
Hi, my name is Rebecca Kovacs, and I live at 104 Springhouse Lane.
I'm Grace Oldfather. I'm at 208 Carriage Lane.
And the purpose for us being here is to basically ask for a status on the waiver that was unanimously issued by the municipal authority to exempt us on a hardship for the sewer connection.
The sewer connection is an ordinance by this board. The municipal authority has no authority to issue a waiver from a township ordinance.
But unfortunately, the municipal authority was able to give us assurances that we weren't required to attach to the sewer. And based on that, they asked us for special permission not to drop the laterals so that we could do a gravity hookup. And because we're 350 feet away, the Clags, my neighbors, are 600 feet away.
400 feet.
Grayson is 400 feet away. I have no easements to allow for a sewer. I don't own the property on either side of my driveway. I now have to be forced to put in grinder pumps, which would really require me to put in a generator, which I can't do easily because my electrical panel is on one side, my fuel source is on another. So in addition to a $14,000 generator, a $6,000 propane tank, and whatever the cost is going to be to go through 350 feet of property that now has to be a grinder and not gravity, I think that it would be in everybody's best interest to consider granting these hardship waivers.
In addition, the township voided the charges, the tap-in fee and the application fee, recognizing that I was to be exempt.
At this point in time, I just want to bring up also, I did have an agreement of sale on my home for $2.15 million that fell through because of this issue. Okay, I've had to retain counsel because all of our calls to Mr. Sheridan and to Mr. Sikora up until recently had been ignored. So I think that we were asked as residents to do certain things, and we did everything that we were asked. We complied based on information that we were provided by the municipal authority that was appointed by the township that in our minds represented the authorities to do this project, okay?
In addition, the engineer that you hired told us that we were exempt on multiple occasions. So we didn't go in and go out and explore where the best spot for the lateral was, would be. I mean, in my case, there was very little option as to where it could go. My driveway, that was the only option pretty much. But I didn't explore anything else because the engineer hired by the, I don't know now if it was the township or the municipal authority,
That was
but
appointed by the
that
township.
representative told both of us and others that because of the distance and the hardship, we were exempt.
A couple clarifications. Our engineer, Ms. Nelson here, I don't think advised you of anything.
No,
Correct.
Mr. Porter.
Mr. Porter is from the McCombie Engineers. McCombie is retained by the municipal authority. Understanding municipal authority is a separate governmental entity from Newtown Township. Yes, we do appoint the 5 members. We appoint 1 member every year. But that, quite frankly, is the extent of the authority that this body has over that governmental body. We don't have any authority to tell them what to do.
But you do have a member in common on both boards, Mr. Neese.
Mr. Neese is not a member of this board. He's the township manager.
Okay, who was on municipal authorities every meeting
The
that the
municipal authority hires Newtown Township, it gets a little confusing now, as the operator of the sewer system.
Okay, well, I understand, no, I'm not gonna say I understand
Okay,
it
I'm just
because
saying.
it's really convoluted and I think to the
Yeah, I
point
agree.
where it's not even able to be easily understood for whatever purpose, the end purpose is there, okay? But what I'm asking is that the board please take some, I don't want to say sympathy, but cooperate with us because we've cooperated with everybody. I can't market my house until this is resolved, okay? And you're putting a burden on me of close to, if not exceeding $50,000. And I don't see where that's A, fair, and B, there's always exceptions to everything if people are willing to do it. So I paid my tap fee, here's my receipt, okay? I paid it willingly, and I am only hoping that the township will take in consideration, all right, the predicament that I have been personally put in, as well as the Clags and the Old Fathers, and I think there's other, like maybe 4 or 5 others, but they're not here, so I'm not representing them. I'm representing myself, the Clags, in conjunction with the Old Fathers. So all I'm asking is that you please take it under consideration. There are exceptions to everything. And all we're asking is that you make an exception. That's all. I mean.
Again, I do have sympathy for you. Unfortunately, you were misinformed by the municipal authority. There's nothing that we as a town, we can't start waiving our ordinance requirements because then you understand the sewer is essentially what we call self-funding. In other words, the sewer gets built by the people who pay for the connection fees and build and connect to the sewer and things like that and pay the EDUs. If we start waiving all that, then no one connects to the sewer, then yes, then the township isn't a problem because we've, I guess, essentially back up the bonds for municipal authority. So now we get on the hook for $30 million.
The original ordinance did allow for, there was a 175-foot exemption. if your residence, if any part of your residence was, I think the way it was worded was if you were within 175 feet, you were required to connect to the sewer, which was the ordinance that we were quoted by Dave Porter, that if you were 175 feet away, and that was in the original ordinance, then you are exempt. And this came up at a meeting with
I
Mr.
believe
Neese
that's
and
property
Mr.
line, not house. If your
Not,
property
no,
line's not
the
within
original,
175 feet.
it now may state that, but originally it stated if you were within 100, if your building, not your property line, any portion of your building was within 175 feet, you were required.
That's not how the ordinance reads, and it was never.
It's not how it reads now.
No, it was never written that way.
Yes, it was, because Dave Porter sent me an email with that. And I mean, I don't have it with me, but I have where he quoted the ordinance that said I was exempt.
I don't think there's anything that this board can do for you.
Well, I think that this is the only place that somebody can do for us, and that's what we've been told.
Well, the
So
So
all
ha-
we're asking is for you, please, not to take such a hard stance, or at the very least, allow us to recoup the money that the town, that the municipal authority saved by not sinking the laterals to put towards the burden. I mean,
We have no ability or
$50,000
authority
is
to do that.
ridiculous.
We didn't build the sewer, the municipal authority built the sewer. We have-
But you do have the authority to grant the waiver. And if the waiver, if the municipal authority is basically the ones who you're saying is the authority, then they should in fact be given the authority to issue the waiver, right?
I appreciate your comment. I can tell you we'll take it on our advisement. I don't know if any other board member wants to offer any
So-
comment or anything.
If I show you the ordinance, the original ordinance, does that make a difference?
Probably not. I can only be responsible for what's on the books right now.
And what about the lack of easements?
Easement for what?
The sewer?
Are you going through somebody else's property to get to the sewer? Or
Yes,
can't you go, your own property does not come within 175 feet of the sewer?
my driveway, but not the place where they have to tap in. The
You
tap
could
in
go up your
is,
driveway and tap in, right?
the tap is at my neighbor's, is on the front of the lawn on my neighbor's.
The tap for gravity is on your neighbor's property.
Whatever
you
the
could-
tap, let's, I
you could-
think
you
Steve
could,
understands.
You could extend it via, as I think you said, a pressure system, a low pressure system.
No, to get to the tap, I have to go,
Just get an easement to get to the tap.
No,
yes.
that's not right. Every property should be able to get to the tap. If your property touches the public right of way at any point, then you have a place to tap into the sewer.
There is no sewer. I checked with Chip Vaughn, who was the developer of the neighborhood, and asked him, and he said there was never any sewer easements put in because there was never any intention of setting up to the sewer. So, and I
Does
also
your
have,
property touch the public right of way line, the street?
here's my driveway, and here's my tap, and this is my neighbor's yard.
So the answer.
Okay, but you and your neighbor can't go into the same place to tap into the sewer.
No, his tap is here.
If your tap, or if a tap was built not on your property, again, that's something you take up with the municipal authority, it's not the township.
So I'm just,
We didn't build the sewer.
so
Can I make a
you're
comment?
telling,
You can, Mr. Solicitor, go ahead.
Mr. Sikora texted me right before the meeting and he said, Ms., and it's not, he made this statement, Ms. Kovacs, the lawyer, was going to get me more information. I think she just sent it to me at 6:20 tonight. He never heard from Ms. Oldfather. That was his comment, since he's not here. Number two, it's not, I mean, public comment is public comment.
Right,
But in order
that's-
to get a request for any type of action by the board, it can't come rare if it all happens through public comment. I mean, if,
That's all we're doing right now is just taking the comment, right?
so, I mean, any action for waiver or whatever would have to come through the proper channels to get it in front of the board so the board can make a
And the
decision
proper
as a
channel
board.
is who?
You would have, you can ask your attorney, I guess, to tell you how to do that. But in
Okay.
order for the board to make a decision, it's not going to make a decision through public comment because it's not on their agenda to do something. So something would have to be
Your attorney's
initiated to
working-
get the board to try and make a decision and get all the relevant information.
Okay, well, I'm going to take exception to that because
Well,
I mailed to Mr. Neese the exemption hardship waiver request that was sent to Mr. Sheridan, okay? at least 6 weeks ago, and that was passed on to Mr. Sikora.
All right, well.
So
we will-
Mr. Sikora
we will
has had this
speak with Mr.
information.
Sikora, and Mr. Sikora will advise the board that if he says we should put it on his agenda, and we will.
Isn't he working it out with your attorney though right now? I mean, that is
No,
correct, right?
No, my attorney called him finally after waiting for a return, and we never got the return, and then finally you were gracious enough to have him return our phone call, okay? So at that time, he said that, I don't even know what he said, to be quite honest with you. I'm trying to even think to what he said.
But the attorneys are.
But we were waiting for some kind of a letter. That's what we were told, that we were getting a letter from Mr. Sikora based on this document, which was the waiver given to us by the municipal authority.
I think, again, so the meeting that Ms. Kovacs is speaking of was the last municipal authority meeting where you came in and spoke. I told you I would get your contact information
Correct.
and give it to Mr. Sikora,
Correct.
especially since you were represented by counsel now. I think that conversation needs to continue to go on between the two attorneys, because there's nothing, as Mr. Catania was just saying, there's nothing that we can do right here, right now, while your attorney is working it out with the special counsel for the township here. We have established, and it's understood that it's extremely convoluted, the relationship between the municipal authority and the township. And we're never going to clear that up tonight, because I think there's just a difference of opinions of what each authority should be doing based off of your point of view and our point of view. But I think the important thing is for the attorneys to continue to work out whatever issue it is that they're trying to work out. We will take everything that you're saying under advisement. We will get guidance from our attorney as well. But, you know, the idea that there's exceptions to every rule, I think is a much watered down, simplistic view when we're dealing with a major legal document that has to go up to DEP and get approval through those processes and those chains. It's not simply us saying we can do it. It's really not as easy as that. And I think that your attorney should really be relaying that information to you.
I got to tell you honestly, that's not the information that we were given by Mr. Sheridan.
And again, I think that what you're seeing here is that the municipal authority gave you one thing, the township, which we're giving you what I would say is the correct information or the correct interpretation of that ordinance. And that's why your attorney needs to now work that out with Mr. Sikora.
But understand.
Mr. Sheridan's not our attorney out. He's the attorney for the municipal authority. They appoint him, not us.
I understand that.
I think what I'm hearing is, you know, we're taking your comment, and now we need to hear from our attorney who's head on this, Rich Sikora.
Right, and I appreciate that, and I hope you will do that, but I also want you to please take into account the financial costs to me, an attorney, the tapping, the generator, the easements, the loss of my sale, the inability for me to be able to market my property again. These are all financial burdens that I'm being handed that I never asked for, you know? And all I'm asking is for some leeway and some possible graciousness from this board in considering the request. That's all I'm asking.
Well, thank you for your comments, and we will check with Rich. Anyone else like to offer some public comment? Seeing no hands, we are in adjournment. Our next meeting is Monday, July 12th, 2021. In the meantime, please have a happy and safe